Welcome to the HabitStack Podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I'm Scott Ward, founder of HabitStack. I'm here today with Alisa Manjarrez, Managing Director of Stories Bureau, among a wide variety of other things. Alisa, thank you for coming on the show. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thanks, Scott. Happy to be here.
What in the world are you learning these days? I would like to start with that question. What are you reading about? What are you listening to? What kind of ideas have captured your attention in particular these last days and weeks?
I created this 2026 bingo card
Oh, yeah?
and I divided it up like the BINGO. It's not that organized, but I divided it up into physical, professional, spiritual. I think I had another, fun.
Yeah.
And so in the like professional, spiritual kind of area, I do have a couple books that I want to read this year. And I started the first one, and it's Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. It's like 2017, I think. And it's all about how to make leaders smarter and how to multiply yourself. That's something I'm really interested in this year. Like, how do I scale me?
Right. Well, how do you scale you? How do you multiply yourself? What is the author saying?
I haven't learned enough.
Okay. That's really
All I know,
interesting.
so far I've learned that there are multipliers, and then I think they call them like demotivators, or it's some D word, but it's the people that the one right now I'm learning about who you don't want to be.
Right.
And you don't want to be the person that holds people back, which it sounds so normal, but a lot of times people are unaware that they're actually stopping people from growing instead of opening the door to allow them to grow.
Right. Is this the
So
book that talks about there being like you can also be, and I don't know if it's an adder or something, like, like it's a mathematical thing. So you can add, and you definitely want to be most people are productive.
diminisher, you just reminded me. Yes.
Diminisher. You can be an adder or a additional, or I don't know. Or you can be a multiplier, which is kind of like the thing you really want. Oh, is there like a divider? Like it's not just diminishing by like a -1 or -2. It's like multiple times 10 minus. Can you be? Do they talk about that?
I should have written some of those stats down because they are out there. But I think that the main like takeaway that I've been getting so far is clarity is such a big deal when you're working with your team. And a lot of times we set expectations, and there's either ego that holds us back. So I don't want you, Scott, to know everything that you know, because then what would my purpose be? It's like a scarcity mindset. But then there's also just the idea of being clear, and that saying clear is kind is actually like a way to empower people, and just being like very clear, like we're having a podcast, you talk, then I talk. And if I didn't really understand that, then it would be holding me back, and you maybe wouldn't be doing it intentionally, but it happens all the time in the workplace.
Right. So what's caught your interest in this? I mean, I can kind of understand big picture why you'd be curious about this. I'm curious about it as well. But why this year in particular for you are you reading Multipliers?
Probably because with my company Stories Bureau, it's been 4 years since I've joined in, and at the beginning of starting Stories Bureau, we were always taking on new, fun, exciting projects, and everything was like, let's learn how to do this. Oh, you want a narrative storytelling podcast? I've never done it, but I'll figure it out and I'll create it. And now that we've done different types of videos and podcasts and other forms of marketing over and over and over again, I'm realizing the beauty of having a team who can just go and do the thing, but also the negative side of that, which is not everyone can do what I do. And so I can't multiply myself in the way that I would like to. So I want to learn.
Right. Right. And so, Lisa, what is it that what is you do what you do, and which is what?
I mean, that's it's a whole like piece of self-discovery as well, as we're looking at like we're in a place in our company where we're like, who are we? And what is our brand positioning? And what is me and my business partner Corey? And what is the team? And one of the things that I've realized I've always known is I'm very strategic and I'm always thinking 10 steps ahead of where my clients are to help them because I want to make them shine. And I don't know how it's happened. Like magically, I want to figure out how in this multipliers learning process, but magically it's like, I think I've hired people who think like that and modeled that for them, that it's like, it's not about nickeling and diming people. It's about helping them and helping them see past their own ways. And that's something I've learned is very much me. And I can see it with some of my team members, and then other team members, I see the potential. So now that I know this is something that I do, I take a step back. I think about how someone can be better themselves in their company or their project. And then I help them. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. And I think that's where I'm going to be teaching a lot of my team. Like, how do you engage in those uncomfortable moments and tell a client, like, that's probably not the best idea. And that's an art form that I didn't realize I had.
Yeah, it does seem like when you're working with a client, really kind of it applies in a lot of different situations, but not just kind of taking orders. You don't want to be an order taker. It's like, what do you want me to do exactly? Okay, I'll go do that.
That's boring.
Yeah, but and doesn't really serve them. But if you can challenge somebody to think differently, that's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you teach other people to challenge other people to think differently?
Yeah.
That's what I'm exploring.
What are your initial thoughts on it? Like, have you had some success, or what would you guess is entailed? Because, so it seems like there's got to be like a basic instinct or ability in the area, right? To be able to think 10 steps ahead, like you said. Frankly, 3 or 4 steps ahead would also be pretty good. Like this, even a little bit ahead. Most of us are so tight. But then, is it courage, self-confidence, or like what do you think gets in the way of somebody who has the basic natural skill? Why don't they do it?
Something that I'm seeing right now, this is like within the last 4 days kind of thing.
Hot off the press.
Hot off the presses. So we have a video team that is taking on a new video team with an existing client.
Okay.
And it's a new type of video, a new project, and there's a lot of strategy behind it because it's brand new. And we're seeing things aren't working right now. It's just plain. It's just not working. I can't figure out where in the chain it's breaking down, where the breakdown is. Is it the creativity? Is it the strategy? Is it this? So what I'm starting to do is work with each individual person on the team and give them full ownership of the whole project. So if you're an editor, if you see that the script isn't very good, speak up. If you're a designer and you see that the wireframe telling you what to design isn't really up to you have really high standards, speak up. And what I'm finding is that a lot of people, especially when you're in this team where you do this, you're a really good editor, you're a really good copywriter, you're a really good designer, you work in your own little hole. And that's why we put those teams together. But when you can empower them to think about the whole thing, what I'm seeing happen in these conversations is they're like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of things I just haven't been speaking up. Like I see it. So it's not that they don't have the ability, it's just that they don't have the permission. And it's not because anything that I've done on purpose. It's just I'm discovering that I never gave them permission, and now I am.
Right. Are they new to the organization or just a new team?
It's a new team to the organization.
Right.
To my team.
Gotcha.
Yeah, new members.
Yeah, it sounds also like there's some trust that needs to be built, right? Like, but what's going to happen if I say something, provide some feedback on something that's not strictly speaking in my area? Is that going to be well received and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and a lot of these people work on other teams where like you just do your job. Like, don't mess with the script. Your job is to be an editor. You know, like that's all you do. And I'm trying to help them say like, no, your ideas are really valuable. And from that, again, hot off the presses, the team has come together, an animator, a designer, and an editor came together and said, what if we change the whole format of the video? Here's some examples. And they're amazing examples that I'm probably going to take back to the client and say, what if we flip? This isn't working. What if we did it this way?
Right.
And normally, and I can say this truly, I wouldn't normally go ask an editor to give me new ideas because I have a strategic team that does that, creative research and all that.
Right.
But now what does it look like when everyone takes ownership of the big project? It seems like a no-brainer, but it's new, especially with a new team.
Yeah. You know, I wonder if you have any thoughts on the flip side. Like I've seen situations also where there's so much freedom for input and there's so much like basically we've kind of come to a place of almost consensus. Like if we all agree, then we'll go ahead with it in this direction, and all of a sudden, and that causes a lot of challenges as well. How do you think is the best way to structure the situation so you get the best of both worlds?
I don't know, because I have been on the other side where I'm getting ideas that I don't really want. It's like too many ideas and too much ownership. I remember when I used to be VP of marketing at a tech company, and Corey, who's now my business partner from Stories, was my agency of record.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm seeing your social media. There's so much we could do. Why don't you just let me talk to your CMO? And we come up with all these ideas. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you're just a little agency. And like, that's not your place. And you're being kind of intrusive.
Right.
This is, of course, early in our relationship. And it was just, but he did have really good ideas, but it just wasn't the time or place for it. And he wasn't actually in a position of authority to come on to my team and change our strategy. He had it wasn't bad, it just wasn't it. And so I do think that, and I don't know I don't remember how I handled it in the moment. I probably didn't handle it well. I'm guessing I just brushed him off. But I could do it because I was the client. But I can see that coming up again, like a lot of bad ideas. But I'd rather have a lot of bad ideas to get to the good one. And yeah.
I think one thing that can be done is that there's still a decider in each area, right? There's still like, okay, great. I'll take the 50 ideas and you know, I'll make somebody has to make a decision. And so that's one way to thread the needle that make it that so that everybody feels very empowered and encouraged to say their piece. And then somebody is in charge of their functional area.
There's a yes or no, and everyone has to respect the ultimate decision. Sometimes for us, it's the client that says that's cool, but it's not going to happen.
Right. So you talk on this, you say on the website, you talk about video and presentations and podcasts, which was interesting, I thought, for an agency to not mention. There's there's a lot of other things that agencies usually mention. They usually say websites, at least, you know, ads, and I don't know. So are those like, I guess, how did you land there? Why is it video presentations and podcasts? Is that because you do a lot of internal stuff? I guess just unpack a little bit more what Stories Bureau is up to.
Yeah. Well, we're working on a new website ourselves.
That's always the first question, is how accurate is the current website based on what you're actually doing?
Almost every time we do like a capabilities presentation with a potential client, they're like, why doesn't your website show how great you are? Like, your website does not do you service. And so after a couple of years of hearing that, we finally decided, all right, let's bite the bullet. But we started doing presentations, presentation design. And that's actually how I met Corey. I was working for, it was market research technology, which is a very niche area. And I needed someone who could understand market research in a way that they could create really good infographics. And I couldn't find anybody. And I do infographics for giant companies, but no one understood what I wanted, like the story I wanted to tell. And so I came across Stories Bureau. It was actually Stories Company at the time. And I just hired Corey and his team for presentations and infographics because that's what I needed. And he happened to be doing that mostly for market research insights professionals who had to take 150 pages of research. And if you think about researchers, they have so much to tell you. But if they have to present to a CEO, the CEO can't sit through a really ugly, boring deck. And so one of the things that Stories Bureau was doing was creating these decks and making stories really concise for internal presentations. At the same time, sometimes in those cases, a video was a better way to tell the story. And so then we started doing videos. And when I came on, the same Mars Wrigley, which is had their market research department, thought we want to share our insights through a podcast. And so Corey called me at the time. I was freelancing and I wasn't doing podcasting. I was just doing podcasting for fun. And he said, I think you should do podcasts for corporations. And Mars Wrigley wants one. And so I put a team together and I said yes. And so we started doing these podcasts for these research teams that were external. And then it just started growing. And so it was a lot of internal work, almost mostly internal. The podcast was our first foray into like truly external. We'd done some events and other things. And then we started doing podcast advertising and then getting in with other companies. We were doing their podcasts. And then it was kind of like, what else do you have going on over there? And I was like, oh, you want to do a campaign? Oh, let's just do a digital media campaign. Oh, you want to revamp your YouTube? So when I was saying earlier how we just said, we've just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And it's been podcasts, presentations, and videos. And then we do other things. But those are like really our core.
Right. Yeah, that's a cool trajectory or kind of unfolding, a natural unfolding of areas of focus. So one thing that I was going to ask you about is, I think, well, is it true that your website says that you focus mostly on Fortune 500 companies, like larger organizations? Okay.
Fortune 5000s, I would say, is more accurate.
Okay. So many listeners to this podcast will be in a smaller organization than that. Maybe not brand new, but they have some traction and stuff, but maybe they have 10, 30, 50 people or something like that. They're not in that category. And I always wonder about this. I'll put it to you, but because I think you do have experience with smaller organizations as well. What advice is out there in the interwebs that smaller companies should really just ignore? Be careful that they just ignore, because it's not for them.
I think the thing that most small companies get too concerned about is like whatever the shiny new thing is. And usually that involves social media, and they feel like they need to be on every single platform all the time. And then it gets really overwhelming, and either they do it really bad or they end up doing nothing because they're waiting for the right moment to finally do Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, all that. And I think that, and you always see like, this is the next thing. One trend I would say to listen to is video. And there's a lot of DIY tools out there to do it. I highly recommend it. And even we're on a Zoom podcast. It's not the best way to do podcasting, but look, it's working for you. Great.
Yeah.
So I think video is something to listen to, but also when it comes to putting the word out there, choosing one place at a time and getting really good at that one that one channel.
That makes sense. Yeah. And what about the other side? Like, sometimes smaller organizations tend to feel like the big institutions are idiots and or do almost anything right. They're slow and sloppy, or not sloppy, but just slow and unimaginative. But what do you think a small organization would do well to follow a larger organization's lead in with regards to in the marketing area?
I agree that larger organizations are small and you can't do as much. It takes so
Yeah.
long to
Yeah.
do one thing.
Yeah.
That's a great thing about being small is you can do something and test it and it fail and it's not a big deal. And then you test something else and you fail again. It's a great place to be. The question was, what should they copy, right, though?
Yeah, totally. That's a succinct way of saying my long convoluted question, which is my specialty.
I would say that what you see from these large organizations, because they are so research heavy, if your audience is similar to their audience, take advantage of the research they've done to speak to your audience. So if you sell cat food, for example, and you see Purina or some big cat brand, whoever they're talking to, how they're talking to, there's so much research that goes behind it. So I would just say the exact same thing they're saying, but in your own words.
Maybe with the slight tweak that makes you different or whatever. Interesting. So, okay. So to feed it back to you, what you're saying is every decision that they've made is backed by a lot of research, and you should just not, don't think that you can just make up some other way of talking about the same product that's just as good because you have intuition is great and creativity is great, but research is kind of good too.
Yeah.
And just too. How many focus groups have they talked to who've told them exactly what they should say? Okay.
Like if you can tell they're speaking to a stay-at-home mom audience, for example, it's probably your audience as well. And versus like a corporate mom. Maybe there's something they found out where stay-at-home moms are making this decision more, and they have the buying power more than a corporate mom. Just look at who that demographic, who they're talking to. And you can tell when you're watching like Super Bowl's coming up, when you watch ads, you know who they're talking to, or you can guess. Sure, some of it is like big general audience if you're a big brand, but you can see who they put in the videos. Everything is intentional. Just know that everything you see, there's a reason why it's there.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have any concrete examples, in your work of maybe for your own company? I don't know, but just where you did that instead of doing the research, you piggybacked on somebody else's.
Well, because I'm in this, like, who are we as a company and how are we repositioning? I'm looking at what everyone else is doing, and I'm actually looking at them and trying to figure out what they're not saying, and I want to say what they're not saying. So right now, for example, most creative agencies showcase their work first, and there is research that goes, if you're looking for a designer, you want to see what they've designed, right? Like that's it makes sense. And they all say we're the best. So a lot of my competitors will say, we're the best. We have the best design. We do the best videos. We do the best podcast. And I'm seeing that and thinking, okay, we're not the best, but sometimes we do think we're the best too. So, we are proud of our work, but where we really specialize when people come back to us after going to the best is we're a really good partner and we're going to listen to you. So we'll see. You'll see whenever our website comes up, it's going to be relationship driven first and work second. And that's something that I'm testing because I see work, and I want to be different. Right. So I'm actually not practicing what I just preached. I'm doing the opposite.
Right. Although, it might be a little bit of a different case in that your competitors are not. The case that we were talking about before was a little company that doesn't have any research budget looking at a Fortune
And
50
I'm
or
not
something.
doing I don't have research budget for my company
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm just doing desk research.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense to me. I mean, I think also what you're describing is a little more credible, right? Like, clearly not everybody is the best. And
hmm
do I even need the best? I mostly need somebody I can rely on and that's good enough. I mean, maybe a
hmm
little, I want to be proud of it, but I don't
hmm
know if I need the very best. And it doesn't even seem like it's likely that you are the very best. How, really?
Exactly.
Um,
I
Clearly
want
that's
someone who
not,
listens to me. How about that? You know?
yeah. And kind of delivers what they said that when they said they would do it mostly and explains the situation when it doesn't happen and, makes it right. And
Mhm.
you're right. It is relationship is kind of an interesting place to focus with your messaging. That's cool. Podcasting. I was going to ask you. You help people with that. You have your own podcast. Is
Mhm.
podcasting going out of style? You think it's kind of waning at this point, or what's your take on where podcasting is going?
It is such a disillusionment to think that everyone and their mother has a podcast because it's not true.
Yeah.
Um, it is a small sector. There are a small sector of creators of podcasts and and what's growing is the consumers.
Mhm.
So right now, the average you probably know this in your own research, I'm guessing, is that the average podcast gets 30 listens.
Mm.
That's really nothing. It's like a small classroom listens to you most
Right.
likely every day.
Right.
And it's a big thing. It's a big hurdle that I have to jump over when I'm pitching large corporations because 30, really? That's what you can guarantee. You can guarantee me 30 people when I'm trying to reach millions.
Right.
Like, how is that going to help me? But it's right now I have a podcast client. They just launched and they're already in with like about almost 1,000 listens. They're in the top 10% of all podcasts. You
Mhm.
think, okay, that's pretty good.
Right.
So you
Right.
don't even have 1,000 listens and you're in the top 10%.
It tells
Like,
you how long the tail is of
mhm.
podcast listeners. That's interesting.
So if you haven't started one and you want one and you can commit, you know what it's like to have to commit and be consistent and all of that. It's a lot of work, but I think it's worth it if you want to. I think podcasts are the new book.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was kind of tongue in cheek when I asked him if it's going out of style because it doesn't seem like it is. But I don't pride myself in being able to predict the future. So when when uh, when when they first started putting like 640 by 480 cameras on flip phones, I was like, cameras on phones is a stupid idea. And my wife jokes about how when she first started being asked to do research using the internet when she was in university or whatever, she was like, this is not going to take on. This is not going to, nobody's going to go for this internet thing. This is stupid. So the two of us don't have a pedigree for predicting the future, but I do feel like podcasts have a lot to be said for them, especially like what you just said with it's like the new book. In the way that I think about it, I'll see what you think about this, is that in a way, a book is like a proof of work or proof of expertise. Even if nobody reads it, it does matter. It's better if they read it, but even if they don't, like, oh, he wrote the book. She wrote the book on this topic. So therefore, you're automatically above everybody who didn't write a book.
Exactly.
And podcasts are not in the same category, but they're on the continuum, like, well, he has podcasts on the topic. So clearly there's whole kinds of like people make up a bunch of stuff. And it's not all untrue either, but they make up a bunch of assumptions about who that person is, or maybe, but more accurately, they make up assumptions about it, who people are if they don't have a podcast. And so you get a bunch of benefits from it. And I don't know if you agree with this or not, but for me personally, it's an order of magnitude easier than writing a book. I don't like writing,
Yeah.
and so
Same. I can
talking to people and
talk.
asking questions is great. It's great.
It's great for relational people who are like I used to always say my ideal job was to be a lady who lunches. And that's because like all you do is go to lunch and chat, right?
Right.
So like if you want to be a lady who lunches, you probably would enjoy having a podcast.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And then if people want to listen to you, even better. And I think what distinguishes like good podcasters in a chat cast setting like this is if people are curious about how you think and you're really good at demonstrating how you think, and that can be through the questions you ask, through the way you respond to people's answers, they start to learn from you in a way where you're not actually having to say, step 1, this is the way Scott thinks. Step 2, do it like this. Step 3, they just kind of like start intuitively getting it, and either they keep listening because they just enjoy it, or they keep listening because they're like, you know what? I want to adopt some of those things. Like I like the way he's asking that question. He always asks that question. Like that's interesting. Maybe I should start asking that question because I like where the conversation goes.
Right. Totally. So what for people who are thinking through, okay, all right, maybe I should do this. I'm a founder and I'm looking for ways to, do some founder-led marketing. Maybe a podcast is a good idea. There are lots of different ways there's lots of different strategies, purposes, and kind of game plans, and they're actually quite different from each other. What are the questions that you ask to determine what strategy somebody should adopt with their podcast?
I'd say the number one thing is to think about what is the value you want to give to your listeners. Like, what's the goal? At the end of this episode, what are you hoping your listeners are going to get out of it? I think a lot of people think, like, what can I teach? And how can they think about their personal brands, which isn't very important. But at the end of the day, if they're not answering that one question every time, there's a podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire, and it's really big. And I forget his name who does it, but he says he's been doing this podcast for over 10 years. And he says he always thinks about the guy who just lost his job. He's sitting on the couch thinking, what am I going to do next? And he's had hundreds and hundreds of episodes, so many ideas. Theoretically, the guy has started a business or gotten a job or something, but he always goes back to that same guy, and he makes sure the questions that he asks are for that guy, just like with a box of old pizza and a couple beer cans. Like, what does he need to hear right now?
Right. Huh. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'll have to think about that some more. What are some creative ways that you see people, like you're talking about people using I don't know if you see people using podcasts internally now. Like what are some like off the beaten path ways of leveraging podcasts that you've observed?
Internally has been a really big thing that I've seen where some kind of team wants to make sure to keep their team up to speed, but they also want to control the messaging in a good way. It's not like they're trying to brainwash, but they're like, here are the 5 things that our people need to learn. So we're going to give them a tool. Like some people do LinkedIn Learning, other people record their own content, and that becomes a podcast. It's like a perk or a benefit if you work for PepsiCo, for example. You get to learn about, and you're in organizational development, you get to learn about all the latest and greatest organizational development tools. So that's one way a big corporation can learn. But I think for like a small business, the thing that I think is cool out there for podcasts is when you have a podcast and then you go to like a conference or an event and you record the live event. And you say like, hey, I'm Scott, and I'm at the Atomic Habits podcast conference, and we're here and I'm talking to my favorite people, and like that, all of a sudden it's not that hard for you to put together. I mean, it does take some work to do it, but like it's a cool thing to give you credibility and make you sound bigger. And even if the sound is bad in the back and you hear it's like the sound and the character of the event becomes a character.
Right.
So I
So
think
you're
that's
not
like a
talking about
cool
walking
thing.
around and talking to people at
You
random. You're
could.
talking about like, yeah, people do that.
You could do that too. You know how you see like man on the street with
Yeah,
your cell phone and you're like, hey, come look at this. What do you think of this booth? You
right.
could do that, edit it and turn it into a podcast if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But you could also like get a conference room on the side or ask the event to sponsor you. A lot of events, they love
Oh yeah.
podcasts.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you say you're going to come, and sometimes they'll provide the equipment for you, sometimes you have to do it on your own, but it's a plus for those events to have a quote unquote podcaster. It's very special.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, time is flying here, but I wanted to ask you one last question. So this is kind of in my area. I always wonder what people are up to in the area of leadership at the business. You're the creative, sorry, no, you are the managing director. And so you've kind of got to keep people aligned and working. But specifically, I'm curious about how do you keep your people working, not just in the business, but also on the business? Like how
Mm.
do you drive that kind of behavior, not just in the weeds kind of behavior?
The on the business is me and my business partner for
Right.
the most part. Because I have people working in the business to allow us to work on the business.
Right.
And it's hard. It's a challenge. It's a challenge even for that. And we've tried to have our internal people work on the business, and we have some people that's all they do. But from a leadership perspective, it's really funny. I have a master's in organizational leadership, and like with this business, I feel like I've never read a book on leader. Like what? I have to put into practice things like be clear, be kind,
Right.
encourage people, all of that. But something that I'm trying to really put into practice right now is to like paint the vision
Mm.
and show people, and I've come up with some company values, and right now I'm in the mode of, while I'm creating these company values and thinking through them, I'm just having little one-on-one conversations with people to say, what do you think about this? Is this really our value? And for them, it's the first time they've put language to something that they do all the time.
Mhm.
And it's like as a leader, I really want to hear what my people have to think, because they see the business from a totally different point of view. And so for me, it's really important to co-create our values and our culture, that it's there, but it's just never really been defined. And so I'm trying to define it with them.
Yeah, I can see that being very fruitful, even if it's that you share a potential value, and they're like, no, that's not. That's really, oh, that's interesting. So
Yeah,
what
it's like,
is it then?
whoa, where's the disconnect? What have I been doing?
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, even it's just, I mean, I do this a lot with people that I talk to. Sometimes I have good ideas, and other times they're like, no, it's not that at all. But that's
Mm.
also so fruitful, right? That's like, oh,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a strong reaction, tells you something really important too. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And I have a remote team. And so communication is like, there's a lot of barriers and challenges to that. So having those conversations for me, even if I never come up with a deck full of values, like I'm learning as I'm having these
Right. Right.
chats.
Yeah. Beautiful. Lisa, thanks for coming on the call, or coming on the show today. I appreciate you sharing what you're up to with Stories Bureau. Any place that you would like people to head over to if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
I am definitely on LinkedIn. You can find me at Alisa Manjarrez. You can just look up Stories Bureau. It might be easier. But I would say, I don't know when this podcast is airing, but our new website is debuting April 2026.
Oh,
So
okay. All
come
right.
look. Then you'll see who we really are.
Right. So if you're listening to this
Storiesbureau.com.
before April, what? April what?
April 2026, this year.
Yeah. If you're listening to this before April 2026, mark it in your calendars. If you're listening to it after April
Go
2026,
look at how bad it is
go
right
look.
now.
No, no. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was pretty cool, but I'm not a marketer, so anyway, it was a pleasure, Lisa. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Scott.
Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack Podcast.